welcome to the Urban Herbalist YouTube channel. Today we're going to make candles, and a couple things I need to address before we start. You need wax, containers. I use a double boiler for melting the wax, your fragrance, your dye, and you really need to know your wax before you start. The type of wax I use, I've been using for years. It's the Nature Wax C3, and depending where you buy it, you can either go on the website of your distributor and they'll have details about the wax for you, or you can go on the website of the manufacturer of the wax, which is what I did years ago. I have the data sheets for Nature Wax C3 and C6, and these sheets are important because it will tell you the temperatures of the wax that you need to get it to for pouring. It'll give you your pour temps and also your fragrance load. Most waxes will give you a 5 to 10% fragrance load, which means, say for instance, if you're using a pound of wax, which is 16 ounces, 10% of that would be 1.6 ounces of fragrance. So if your wax can handle a 10% fragrance load, you would add 1.6 ounces of fragrance to 16 ounces of wax. Most waxes are 5 to 10%, and for the Nature C3, I tend to use 5% fragrance load for that. So we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, we are ready to measure our wax. So now you have to excuse the dirtiness. I've been using these for years for making candles, but I have my scale and my wax container. You want to use a pitcher. It's got a nice handle on it. Set it on the scale and then make sure you tear out the scale so that it is 0. Now I'm using 4-ounce containers. You want to leave a little bit of room at the top for the wick and for the burning. So for a 4-ounce container of wax or 4-ounce container candle, I'm probably going to use about 3.5 to 3.7 ounces of wax. And I'm going to be making 4 candles. So if we use 3.5 ounces of wax for 4 container candles, that is going to be 14 ounces of wax. So we have our scale zeroed out. I'm going to go ahead and add our wax. I'm at 14.4. It's a little over. That's fine. The thing with, you don't have to be completely exact with the measurements because you can tweak it a little bit. And if you have a little extra wax, you can just pour it out in the garbage. It's better than having a little bit under wax. So we're going to go ahead and move the wax over to our double boiler. And now we need to measure out our fragrance oil. I had 14.4 ounces of wax, so we're going to round that just down to 14 ounces of wax. 10% of that would be 1.4 ounces of fragrance oil. And to go for the 5% fragrance load, which is what's recommended for the wax I'm using, it's going to be 0.7 tenths of an ounce per fragrance oil. So we've got our scale zeroed out and our measuring container. Okay, and we're at 7 ounces of fragrance. So we're going to go ahead and go over by our wax. While our wax is melting, we can prep the jars. Another thing you need to pay attention is the size wick you use. There are some guides you can find online that will tell you what wicks are best. Candlescience.com has a really good source for a wick guide, and there are contraptions you can get for placing the wicks. I just use, it's a thermometer holder is what I'm using. So I've got that inside of here. To keep the wick in place, there are these little glue tabs that you can get. And I put that on the bottom. And then you just pull the tab off. So you got a little padded glue dot. And then I place it in the bottom. Try to center it the best you can. And then press it down. So now we have our wick in place. Now what's going to happen when you pour the hot wax in here, this is going to go all over the place. So I use a wick guide. As you can see, it's well used. And I place it on top, put the wick inside the slot here to hold it in place. So now our wick is going to stay centered. Okay, I've got my 4 jars ready with the wicks in place. You'll notice I covered the countertop with some paper towel. The wax, yeah, you can scrape that off, but some of this dye is not going to come off, which is why I'm obviously not wearing my Sunday best when I make candles, because I do have a tendency to get dye all over myself. So we have our jars ready. We want to make sure they're room temperature before you put the wicks in so that the wax adheres to the glass. And we're going to go back and check our wax. Okay, we've removed our wax from the heat source. It was 181 degrees. My pour temperature, according to my sheet, is 170 to 180, so we can afford to let it lose some heat. Now I'm going to add my liquid dye. I'm choosing red. Of course, you want to refer to your manufacturer directions as far as how to use the dye and how much to use. Paraffin wax dyes a lot faster than soy wax, so you're going to find you'll need to use a little more dye if you use soy wax as opposed to paraffin. So I've added my few drops of red because we're making some red Aries Zodiac candles. And I'm going to add my fragrance. You can use many different things for stirring. I happen to be a fan of the bamboo skewers. I like to use the bamboo skewers. Now this is very important. You'll want to stir for 2 minutes. You need to stir it for at least 2 minutes. I usually just go 2 minutes exact to give your fragrance and your dye a chance to dissipate in the wax. So we're going to go ahead and stir this for 2 minutes. Okay, the wax has been stirred for 2 minutes. The fragrance and dye has been added, and I've double checked the temperature to make sure it's in the temperature range it should be, and now we are ready to pour. And remember to leave a little bit of room at the top for your wick. Wick should be 1/4 of an inch when burning. Once these solidify, I'll take the wick guides off. I will come through with the scissors and trim the wicks. Let them cure for 72 hours. And then I'll add my caps and my labels and we are good to go. One last check to make sure our wicks are straight and in the middle. Okay, and that's all there is to making candles. Again, the key points to take away: make sure you know your wax, you have your data sheets so that you know the pour temperature that your wax should be at and the fragrance load that it can handle. For example, with the candles we just made, I used 14 ounces of wax for 4 4-ounce candles. I left enough room so that there's room for the wick to burn and also for the fragrance to be added. Make sure you stir for 2 minutes, and also be wary of candle dye, especially the liquid dye. The block dye, it's just little pieces of wax, so that will melt. But the liquid dye will stain your clothes, so wear an apron or old t-shirt and jeans like I do, and then let them harden, trim your wicks, and let them cure for 72 hours before you burn them. I want to thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment. And I also invite you to visit urbanherbalist.com for any more information you would like as far as herbal remedies and things of that sort. Thank you for watching.